Wow, what a topic we have going on this week. It's so significant, it's so impactful. And the reason that I think it is that if we have an inaccurate sense of who we are, if we have the wrong idea of who we are, and it's deeply operational inside of us, then there are going to be consequences of that. What are the consequences about having a false idea or a false premise about anything? Well, it breaks down over time. It struggles. It won't pass the test of time. And perhaps that's the cause of suffering on this plane of existence, is that suffering is the breakdown of the illusion or the presuppositions or the fraudulent way of thinking about ourselves. If we don't know who we really are, goodbye. We could only suffer. And maybe suffering is actually a corrective that's built in. We're self-correcting organisms where if we lose our true sense of self too significantly, then a corrective is built in and a sense of suffering. And of course, suffering, if we all take a look at it, is generally a smaller, more limited, more degraded sense of self that's vulnerable or susceptible to pain. And that's simply not the truth of who we are. So, in our adventure of life, and there are many adventures, perhaps the greatest adventure that could be available to us in a human lifetime would be the restoration, the remembrance of who we actually are. There was a great yogi in the early 20th century whose primary form of teaching was simply to ask continuously, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And he said that this process in and of itself would reveal the truth sooner or later, because from the moment we're we small ones, small babies, the world does an almost perfect job of convincing us of a false sense of reality. Now, when you look at babies, they don't have that sense of limitation. They're clearly in a state of innocence, but they're not conscious of it. They're unconsciously conscious of that glorious, unified, larger sense of self. But as we live more and more time and space in this world, the delusion begins to close in around us. And the world is always convincing us who we are. And sooner or later, we swallow it and we forget who we are. And if there's one thing humans are most addicted to, in my opinion, it's who we think we are. And of course, we call that ego. It's this smaller, more limited sense of self. So, how do we get out of it? What's our way out of this downward spiral into this false sense of self that's locked in space and time? Well, as I've said all week long, just to know that that's true, just to hear that truth. And there are not that many people really saying what this truth is. And it's not necessarily a popular truth or an interesting truth to most people. Most people are interested in the day-to-day responsibilities, duties, and obligations. But sooner or later, true seekers realize, why am I doing all this? What's the purpose of this? Who am I really? And it's that opening moment of awareness that begins to bring back this fact that while we may have shrunk into this small, limited body, it's only a very small time capsule that we live in, and that we're going to be somewhere doing something forever. Your infinite state of consciousness is immutable in this sense of being locked in space and time. I was born then, I'm living now, I'm going to die one day, and for the majority of time, I will be gone, I will be evaporated. That's just absolutely false. And the world pushes and permeates that truth on us. And sooner or later, the world's going to wake up to it. And that's when all species really advance. That's when we'll prove whether we as a species will make it. But damn it, you do not have to wait for that. You personally can come up out of the muck, the quicksand of forgetfulness, the sense that I'm a small being living in space and time, and simply establish within yourself. Several times during the day, you can pause in the rush of life and say, I am. I am. And in that pausing and in that remembrance, in that cultivated state of presence, then the prison of being locked in time and space, and the suffering will just naturally fall away. It just disappears. And you'll know what I'm talking about. Sometimes it happens quickly, sometimes it happens slowly, but it will be revealed. And sooner or later, you just can't hold the truth out that long. So we've been working this week on as many ways to think about it or say it as possible, but don't buy the lie. No longer buy the lie of who the world says you are, and instead be interested in who you really are. And we'll continue tomorrow. See you.